Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Bethany, and today's recipe I'm going to be showing you how to make a creamy and cheesy risotto. This is a dish that I think a lot of people assume is very difficult or intimidating, but it's actually really simple to make. It's delicious. You can pair it with so many different dishes. So let's get right into it. All right, so we're ready to make our risotto. I typically like to have all the ingredients ready to go before I start because things move a little quickly and I don't really want to be running around and grabbing things because you need to be babying the risotto. That's kind of one thing with risotto is you don't walk away from the pan. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. I like to do a combination of both butter and oil. The butter tends to burn a little bit faster and the oil will kind of help prevent that. So I do a combination, but butter is very important in a risotto. So you always want to have it because it adds a lot of richness. And then I diced up about 3 shallots and I diced those up kind of small. And shallots, I chose just because I wanted a little bit more oomph of flavor in this, but you can totally use a very small onion or half of a medium onion. A shallot is kind of between garlic and onion, so I thought it would be nice in this. But I also have made risotto with onion, so you can use either. We're going to saute this. It's going to cook pretty quickly as shallots typically do. Now we're going to add 1 cup of arborio rice. I'm going to add that in with the shallot. We're going to toast this with the shallots. And what this does is it's going to bring out a really nice nutty flavor in the risotto and also just give a nice little bite to the risotto as it cooks. We're going to stir that in with the shallots just for 1 to 2 minutes just to kind of lightly toast it. So arborio rice is a really popular choice for risotto because it has a really high starch level, and that's just going to give it the creaminess that we want. Another popular choice other than arborio would be carnaroli, and that has even more starch than arborio, but it's definitely not something that I see at my local grocery store. So if you find it, you could use that too. All right, now that we've toasted that, we're going to add 1/3 cup of white wine. I'm using Pinot Grigio. That's gonna add just a beautiful flavor to the whole dish. And we're gonna cook off that alcohol for about 2 minutes. We don't need to cook it too long because it wasn't that much, and it's gonna absorb pretty quickly. Okay, so next, we wanna make sure we have hot chicken stock ready to go. And I have 32 ounces of a chicken stock that's been heated up and nice and hot. That's actually really important when you're making risotto. You need the stock that you're using to be nice and hot because you're gonna be adding it throughout this whole process. And if it's cold, it's just gonna take this way longer to cook. We need that to be ready to go, nice and hot for this to work. And now, we're gonna add a nice big ladle to our risotto. And the biggest rule with risotto is you don't walk away. We're gonna be standing here stirring this entire time, so you can get some music going, grab a glass of wine. It's really just a time to sit at your stove and baby this thing until it's ready to go. Probably about 15 to 20 minutes, it kind of depends on how hot everything is. So we're just gonna sit here and stir until that last ladle of broth is absorbed. But yeah, it's a great dish to just kind of enjoy cooking for a minute. I actually really like making risotto because it kind of forces me to just be present and cook. So I typically will put on some Frank or some Dean Martin and play that. I actually shared my Spotify playlists on my YouTube post, so you can go to the community tab. I think it's community tab. And you can use one of my playlists and play that while you're making risotto. It's perfect. All right, we're ready for our next ladle of stock. And we're just gonna continue to repeat this process until this risotto is cooked. The reason that we go at this pace is because we really wanna draw out those starches and that creaminess in the risotto. And if we just added everything to a pot and just let it cook like regular rice, it wouldn't work. This is a gradual process and it's worth it in the end. It makes a really wonderful dish that everybody loves. And then while you're stirring, I don't really like to add all the flavoring at the end. I like it to develop while it's cooking. So I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt to this process while the risotto's cooking. One of the things to keep in mind that's really important with the consistency of risotto is we want this to be like a porridge. It's not meant to look like rice or to look dry. It's actually meant to spread out when you put it on a plate and have a creamy, delicate consistency. So it shouldn't look like a rice pilaf or anything like that. It should actually move when you put it on a plate. And that's kind of, I remember I'm always saying that on Top Chef, is that it needs to spread out. So I always remembered that, and I know that it's supposed to have a porridge-like consistency. So just keep that in mind when you are making this. All right, so we are more than halfway through this cooking process, and we're just gonna keep stirring, keep cooking. Stay patient, it's all gonna come together soon. And some dishes that go really well with risotto, which there's really so many proteins that you can pair with this. Seafood is a really popular one. So any white fish, scallops. I'm not the biggest scallop fan, but you can serve this with scallops, shrimp. Then in addition to serving this with seafood, you can serve this with beef or pork or chicken. Really, any type of protein will go great with this. All right, I'm gonna just see where this risotto is at. I'm gonna try a little bit. Still has a good bit of a bite to it, so I wanna keep cooking this. We're almost there, we're nearing the finish line. Okay, clean the spoon. We're gonna taste it one last time. I think it's ready to go. It's perfect. You got that tenderness, but just a little bite of texture. So now we can add our cheese. So now we're gonna add 1 heaping cup of finely grated Parmigiano Reggiano. This is where all the flavor comes from. It adds richness, creaminess, cheesiness, and we wanna make sure that the cheese is finely grated so that it melts perfectly, gets evenly incorporated into the whole dish. All right, that's not a cup, but I'm just gonna stir that in because I gotta keep stirring. I'm gonna turn my heat down. And it's always nice to have some extra stock on hand in addition to what the recipe calls for, just in case the dish dries up and you need a little bit more stock. You can always add it. This dish can handle it. It's meant for that, so you're not gonna ruin it by adding additional stock because it just eats it up and it dries up pretty quickly. We don't want stiff risotto. We want it to spread out, be nice and beautiful and creamy. All right, and then after we added our cheese, we're gonna stir in 1 more tablespoon of butter before we serve this. All right, so our finishing touches with seasonings, we want to add a little pinch of salt. The cheese has a lot of salty flavor, but we just want to finish seasoning it just so that the flavor's just right with that extra pinch of salt. And then for herbs, you can really pair a lot of different herbs with risotto. Today I'm doing fresh basil, but you can also do fresh parsley, or thyme is really nice with it. And keep in mind that the risotto is only as good as you flavor it with the cheese and an extra pinch of salt if you feel like it's under seasoned. And then we're gonna serve it with black pepper and herbs. But if you feel like it needs more flavor, just add more Parmigiano Reggiano. That's gonna be your saving grace for more flavor. When in doubt, add parm. All right, so now we're gonna taste this. And if you see, The risotto's not super stiff. It is spreading out on the plate, which is what we want. And if it's not, just add a splash of stock and that will do the trick. We're gonna serve this with a little bit of basil on top. More Parmigiano Reggiano. You always wanna serve this with freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano on top. And then a little bit of black pepper. And I have a spoon here, so I'll use a spoon. Look at that. Looks delicious. So good and creamy. It's so good. It just has such a beautiful creamy consistency. You taste that Parmigiano Reggiano, and then I love to finish it with black pepper on top. I don't really like to add it to the whole dish. I don't know why with risotto. I just like to serve it on top, the bites of fresh herbs. It really comes down to how you serve it. You can of course prepare this and it's delicious, but again, I really like to serve it with the herbs, freshly grated cheese on top to finish it off, just to add a little bit more flavor. The consistency is perfect, creamy, with just that little bite of texture. But if you guys try this dish, I hope you enjoy it. You can let me know in the comments what you think of it. We're coming up on grilling season soon, and I feel like this will go really well with a lot of grilling recipes. So if you pair it with anything that you enjoy, you can let me know. You can also add so many things to this. You can add mushrooms, vegetables, different spices and herbs, so you can be creative with it. I just wanted to share the basics for how to make a straightforward classic risotto. And thank you so much for all the support week after week, for sharing these recipes with your family, with your friends. It means so much. And I thought I would give a few shout outs to some of our viewers. We haven't done that in a little bit. We have Rob89139, I think is the number. There was quite a few numbers in there. Trying to remember it off the top of my head. But thank you so much for watching the videos week after week and just for your words of support. They mean so much. And Jeff and Sherry Francois, I think I have that right. Thank you so much for your kind words of support every week. I really appreciate it. So yeah, I'm just so thankful for all the support. Thank you guys so much. And as always, we'll catch you in the next recipe and I'll see you in the comments.